All right, we're going to start now with the first of the trumpets. Remember, the trumpets are for God's people. These are angels bringing these messages to God's people. And these trumpets are to sound for a warning, for you to prepare for war, for you to get instructions, for you to return from being dispersed, not only as a divided church, but as a people that are spending your time in Egypt and Babylon. You're to return to God and prepare for his coming. And one thing we need to understand, it's another wonderful revelation that we already talked about, the sixth seal in chapter 6, starting with verse 12, covered those that would go into the tribulation, be saved in the tribulation, die in the tribulation. That the sixth seal covered the tribulation. Now we need to understand something here, saints. The first 4 trumpets and the sixth seal all describe an asteroid, a moderate-sized asteroid hitting the earth. The first 4 trumpets are just 4 looks at that asteroid hitting, describing different results of it hitting. And not only that, but the first 4 bowls of wrath are the same thing. Those that got you on the wide way to destruction would tell you just in that alone, the 4 bowls, the first 4 bowls, the first 4 trumpets and the seal are 9 different disasters. They're not. It's 9 different looks at one event, a moderate-sized asteroid hitting the earth in an ocean. That's what we need to understand. This is going to make this way less complicated. So these trumpets that these angels have are messages to the church. And as they're blown, you'll be getting a new understanding here. And the trumpets are to the church, and they are the beginning of the tribulation, just after this, just as this asteroid hits, and just after it hits. The bowls of wrath are at the end of the tribulation, the outcome of these asteroids hitting, and the destruction that they cause, and the results of the world and the kingdom of a beast and the Antichrist not turning to God. Those are the bowls of wrath. Christians always say Christians can't go into the tribulation because it's the wrath of God. No, you're going to go to the glory of God, the power of God, the latter rain, the coming of Elijah. You're going to preach the gospel in glory and power. But the bowls of wrath are the same as the trumpets. They're just for the world that follows the Antichrist, rejects the kingdom of God, the grace of God. So I'll show you how that's absolutely true. We read first in the 6th seal, and I looked, and when he broke the 6th seal, there was a great earthquake. As an asteroid hits, there will be a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth made of hair, and the whole moon became like blood, and the stars of the sky fell to earth as this kicks up a vast amount of debris into the atmosphere, and it rains down upon earth. And the sky was split apart like a scroll when it's rolled up, and every mountain and island were moved out of their place. Not every mountain and island on the whole earth, where the asteroid hits. Now, the first trumpet in chapter 8, verse 7, and the first sounded, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and they were thrown to the earth. Now listen here, and 1/3 of the earth was burned up, and 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. Not across the entire earth, but the nation that this asteroid hits. This asteroid's going to hit in an ocean. That's going to be very clear shortly. just off the coast of a nation, and that nation will have a third of its earth burned up, and a third of its trees, and all of its green grass. And as an asteroid comes down, in front of it is hail and fire as it's coming down. And they're mixed with blood. This is the blood of death. And we're going to see that very shortly as we move ahead. So this is the first trumpet to God's people. And we have a third of the earth and a third of the trees burned up. And this hail and this fire comes first as it's coming down. And as we read in Revelation chapter 16 about the first angel with the bowl of wrath, and the first angel went and poured out his bowl into the earth, and it became loathsome and malignant sores upon the men who had the mark of the beast and who worshipped his image. These bowls of wrath, the wrath upon those who worship the beast and follow the beast and reject Christ. And they have these sores upon them now because of the effects of the asteroid coming into the atmosphere. It will destroy a huge part of the ozone. And then in the second trumpet, in verse 8, and the second angel sounded, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. A great mountain burning with fire. It won't be too big. It can't cause too much trouble. What is going to happen with this asteroid hitting? It's going to undo the world's governments. And when they fall and their structure falls, the kingdom of the Antichrist will come to power. And as this second angel sounds, something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into a sea. This is a clear image of an asteroid. And a third of the sea, it's really an ocean, and a third of that ocean become dead. As soon as the asteroid hits, see, these are all thirds. Now a third of this ocean that it lands in becomes like blood. It's dead. The life in it dies. And a third of the creatures which were in that ocean and had life died. And a third of the ships were destroyed. See, this is a message about the asteroid hitting. As it hits, immediately a third of the ocean there is ruined. A third of the creatures are destroyed. And a third of the ships are destroyed. And that was the second trumpet. Let's go to the second bowl of wrath. And the second angel poured out his bowl into the sea. Do you see this, saints? And it became blood like that of a dead man. That's the blood it's talking about in these trumpets and these bowls of wrath, like that of a dead man. It doesn't have life. And every living thing in the sea died. Do you see that? It starts out as the asteroid hits. A third of all that's damaged. A third of it's dead. A third of the ships are sunk. In the bowl of wrath, this is at the end of the tribulation, the wrath upon the ungodly. And the ocean becomes like a dead man. No living thing in it. And every living thing in it died. Do you see that? It's the same. And then we go to the third angel sounded, and a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch. Once again, a perfect picture of an asteroid. If you haven't seen the documentaries, the new, modern, good documentaries on asteroids and what it would be like when they come down, go look at one. These are perfect pictures of it. Each of these first four trumpets is a picture, a look into a different aspect of an asteroid hitting. And the third angel, it says, is a great star fell from heaven burning like a torch. You've seen meteorites, how they burn and they come down. And it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. So in that nation that this asteroid is going to hit just off the coast, once again, a third a third of the rivers and the springs of water, a third of the fresh water is destroyed immediately upon it hitting. And what do we have in the third bowl of wrath? Listen to this, saints. And the third angel poured out his bowl into the rivers and the springs of water, and they became blood. They died. They became poisonous. By the end of the tribulation, all those streams, all that fresh water, all those rivers will be polluted and destroyed. If you look at those documentaries on asteroids, you'll see that if one hits in an ocean, it'll kick up a giant plume of salt water mixed with sulfur and acid. And where this is going to hit, there's also going to be nuclear power plants near there. If the islands are going to be gone and the mountains are going to be flattened, certainly the nuclear power plants are going to be busted wide open and destroyed. All that with the acid and the sulfur and the salt water is going to go up far into the atmosphere and cause this giant mushroom of this poisonous water. And just after it hits, as that rains down on the fresh water, it's going to poison a third of all the fresh water around that area where the asteroid's effects have spread. And then as it said in the bowl of wrath, and the third angel poured out his bowl into the rivers and the springs of water, and they became blood. They, by the end of the tribulation, are totally dead. Do you see this, saints? It's so simple. It keeps this from 9 different giant disasters to one thing that's getting God's purpose done. And now we go to the 4th trumpet. And the 4th angel sounded, and a third of the sun, and a third of the moon, and a third of the stars were smitten, so that a third of them might be darkened, and the day might not shine for a third of it, and the night was the same. Let's look at the 4th bowl of wrath. And the 4th angel poured out his bowl upon the sun, and it was given to it to scorch men with fire. And men were scorched with fierce heat, and they blasphemed the name of God, who has the power over these plagues, and they did not repent so as to give him glory. So as the asteroid enters the atmosphere and has a great effect upon the ozone and the sun's ability to reach the earth, it will be having far more radiation falling upon the earth. So in the bowl of wrath, and men were scorched with fierce heat and blasphemed God. This is the same thing. We have this one asteroid hitting with these 4 different looks at it from 4 different directions with the 4 different effects it will have. The trumpets are to God's people to get ready and prepare, and they show the beginning of those things. The bowls of wrath are the wrath of God upon mankind that turns away from him and to the Antichrist. And it's at the end of the tribulation, the final effects of each of those things, as those things are culminated throughout the tribulation. Saints, these trumpets are for you to be ready for any that go into the tribulation. Remember, we saw that hundreds of millions of people are going to be in the tribulation and come out of the tribulation. The church of Laodicea that goes in, and the millions, hundreds of millions that are saved by and through that church during and through the tribulation.